Fellow Sadzaitas, a pattern has emerged in ZANU-PF where prominent party members are publicly undermining Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, similar to what happened to ED before the 2017 coup. Initially, it was the ZANU-PF spokesperson Christopher Muchangwa who set the tone at a time when criticizing Chiwenga was unthinkable. But now, every Tom, Dick and Temba seems to be doing it. And things got worse when VP Chiwenga reportedly went after certain individuals who are commonly referred to as Rigananda. He reportedly demanded for their arrest during a Politburo meeting. Now, a dossier detailing their alleged offenses started circulating widely and was even discussed in the Politburo. It has since been referred to as the Chiwenga dossier. It was met with a fierce resistance from Nangago's camp. Justice Minister Ziambi, one of the chief enforcers of the ED 2030 agenda, responded by publicly dressing down Vice President Chiwenga as if he was addressing an ordinary party member. He even suggested that the general should attend the Herbert Chitepo School of Ideology. I can assure you, there is no greater insult. Interestingly, only a few months ago, Muchangwa opposed Tagwirei's growing influence in ZANU-PF, suggesting that Tagwirei too should attend the Herbert Chitepo School of Ideology. Yet, a few months later, Muchangwa appears to have reconciled with Tagwirei, raising questions about whether he might have been offered an irresistible deal. As the saying goes, every man has a price. Has Muchangwa's price been finally met? Yanaka seiko Maria Tagwirei, yaita kuti manize aite soft as wool, yaita kuti Temba Mliswa aite content creator. Icho ndicho chicomic sabuku, a comic buru. So where to from here? Because there are so many permutations. Does ED go all the way until 2030 and then hand over power to what seems to be his preferred successor, Tagwirei? Or does he step aside in 2028 and hand over power to Tagwirei then? And what about General Chiwenga? What are his chances of seizing the throne, considering how ED has outmaneuvered him at almost every turn? What about the opposition? Can it resurrect? Kana kuti zvakaendwa? Well, fellow Sadzaitas, slay queens and bingers, socialites, papalites, vasinamalites, varikudya rice, never sinama rights. Welcome to this special report. It is no longer a secret that bad blood exists between ED and Chiwenga. Yes, they maintain a working relationship, but only out of necessity. It's a marriage of convenience, defined more by caution rather than confidence. Yes, you'll see them in public, smiling and sometimes shaking hands. But beneath that political choreography lies a deep, simmering hostility, a cold war. It's not by accident that Chiwenga has never chanted the 2030 slogan, nor is it a coincidence that he has never said Pasna Geza. In fact, the Justice Minister Ziambi highlighted this very point in his official response to the Chiwenga dossier. In his words, Ziambi said, whilst the author castigates certain individuals, he has never castigated Geza. a rebel who was expelled from the party and is bent on inciting chaos in the country. So here, Zyambi was questioning why VP Chiwenga speaks so much about corruption but nothing about Geza. In fact, Zyambi's response to the Chiwenga dossier is very telling. It's not just the tone he used in addressing VP Chiwenga. It's the content itself. He went far beyond a routine political rebuttal. He exposed intimate details of the 2017 coup that had previously never been made public. This suggests that his response was not an independent initiative, but a sanctioned statement, likely cleared or even authored under Mnangagwa's direct instruction. Because you see, some of the information disclosed borders on state secrets. For instance, Zyambi openly stated that Kudakwashi Tagwirei personally financed the 2017 coup, Operation Restore Legacy. Zyambi detailed how Tagwirei supplied millions of liters of fuel, food and cash to support the military effort. This revelation fundamentally alters the historical narrative of that coup. In other words, Zyambi's response was not just a rebuttal. It was a political masterstroke because it did three things. Number one, it defended Mnangagwa. Number two, it legitimized Tagwirei. And number three, it humiliated Chiwenga. A 3-in-1 baba. So by crediting Tagwirei with financing the 2017 coup, Zyambi effectively elevated him from being a mere businessman to being a kingmaker. It positions him as being the financial spine of both the 2017 military coup and the ruling elite that emerged from it. Zyambi legitimized Tagwirei's political influence and clout. That means, on top of being very close to power, Tagwirei now has historical importance in ZANU-PF, all because of Zyambi's response. So that was a political masterstroke, because it entrenches Tagwirei's importance in ZANU-PF, and at the same time, it erodes Chiwenga's revolutionary standing. And by making people doubt Chiwenga's credentials as a great military commander, Zyambi reduced him to political nothingness. Remember, Chiwenga's authority inside ZANU-PF has always been built on two pillars. Number one, his role in orchestrating Mugabe's ouster, and number two, his symbolic influence in the military. You take away one of those, Chiwenga's power base weakens dramatically. So the thing is, Zyambi's revelations struck right at the heart of that first pillar, the legacy narrative. By implying that Operation Restore Legacy wouldn't have been possible without Tagwirei's money, Zyambi diluted Chiwenga's role in that operation. His involvement was reduced into being just a minor detail tied to Tagwirei's money. The timing of the response was also deliberate, because it came at a time when factional tension within ZANU-PF reached boiling point. Perhaps it came as a public warning that the system is firmly aligned behind ED and his Vision 2030. By system, I mean all instruments of power. But it also signaled something broader, that the new ZANU-PF hierarchy could see a change. We could begin to see money replacing military and wartime credentials as the true currency of influence, where political power no longer comes from revolutionary sacrifice, but from financial muscle. And for Chiwenga, this is a dangerous territory. The coup credentials that once made him untouchable are now being rewritten, not by the opposition, no, by his own colleagues. When ZANU-PF rewrites your history, it usually means your political career is about to end. That's how they deal with you when they no longer want you. They did the same to Ndabaningi Stole, rewriting his history to discredit him. They did the same with Joyce Mujuru and even Mugabe himself. Well, actually, even ED's history was rewritten months before he was fired. Remember how Grace Mugabe was going around the country denigrating ED at interface rallies? She even claimed that ED plotted a failed coup against Mugabe in 1980, all in a bid to turn the ZANU-PF structures against him. And it worked. Well, at least for a while. So could this be what they are trying to do with the general? Rewriting his history as a precursor to his eventual sacking. I'm not saying they're going to sack him. I'm also not saying they won't sack him. I am simply exploring the permutations based on the available evidence. Remember, they have already dismissed a document linked to Chiwenga as being treasonous and inciting. They also accused Chiwenga of not only destabilizing the government, but also intruding into ED's private business. Those are serious allegations which, when activated, could end Chiwenga's political career in an instant. What is even more telling is that all these allegations border on disloyalty to the appointing authority. You see, in ZANU-PF, the most dangerous label you can carry isn't being corrupt or incompetent. The real danger comes when you're labeled disloyal. Disloyal to the appointing authority, the president. Remember, Zimbabwean vice presidents are largely ceremonial appointees. They hold little real power and serve entirely at the pleasure of the president. It's the same reason many of you don't even remember some of them by name, because most of them were politically as soft as wool. They were yes men, living in Mugabe's shadow, content with being number two. Even Joshua Nkomo, once he became vice president, was content with being vice president. Never at any time displayed hunger for power or scheming in the cover of darkness. All our VPs were soft as wool. All of them, with the exception of ED Mnangagwa. ED was different. And that difference is what enabled him to remove Mugabe. So if Chiwenga ever dreams of launching his own Operation Restore legacy against ED, then you will need that same level of distinction. But for Chiwenga to reach that level of distinction, you would need General Philip Valerio Swanda to come through for him, in the same way Chiwenga himself came through for Mnangagwa in 2017. The problem, however, is that General Swanda and the rest of the ZDF top brass appear to be comfortably aligned with ED. Those seemingly endless military reshuffles were not random. ED knew exactly what he was doing. Each change systematically diluted Chiwenga's influence and consolidated loyalty around the commander-in-chief. This is very different from what was happening in 2017, where Robert Mugabe was surrounded by commanders who had held their positions for decades. Men deeply entrenched within the system, commanding enough loyalty and institutional memory to coordinate with his vice president and challenge his authority. Mnangagwa learned from that experience. He made sure no commander would ever again serve long enough to build that kind of independent power base. ED has had 4 ZNA commanders in 7 years. In contrast, Robert Mugabe had 4 ZNA commanders in 37 years. And here I'm not counting Sandy McLean. So it's very clear, ED has done his homework regarding the military. So if a coup were to happen in Zimbabwe, then it would most likely be led by mid-level commanders, because the top brass seems taken care of. But of course, the ZDF is different from other African militaries, so the likelihood of mid-level commanders staging a coup in Zimbabwe is minimal. Of course, I am not saying that it is impossible for the military to rise against ED. I'm simply saying he has done everything in his power to prevent that from happening. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's improbable. At least for now. Because 1 week is a long time in politics. Plus, there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies in politics. They are just a permanent interest. But even the interests themselves, if you dig deeper, you realize they are not even permanent either. They change with time. So, Vice President Constantino Gouveia Dominic Nyikadzino Chiwenga, once the Kingmaker of 2017, the man who cleared the path from Mnangagwa's rise, is now being quietly framed as unreliable, too ambitious, and too independent. But what happens to him now? Well, I am not a prophet, sir. But there is one thing that I know. You see, sometimes in ZANU-PF, loyalty is proven by humiliation. If the president insults you publicly and you stay silent, you might survive. That is if your fate hasn't already been sealed. We saw this before. When Mugabe called Jonathan Moyo the devil incarnate, Moyo stayed silent and was eventually forgiven. When Webster Shamu fell with Maim Juris Gamatok's faction, he kept attending party meetings despite ridicule and was eventually forgiven. But not everyone gets redeemed. A former VP, Joyce Mujuru herself, was vilified, humiliated, and ultimately expelled. That's the position Chiwenga finds himself in today. He is being tested, provoked even by voices acting as Mnangagwa's unofficial messengers. Themba Mliswa has become the loudest among them, attacking Chiwenga in public with a confidence that suggests he knows no real danger will come his way. These attacks are not random. They are part of a familiar ritual inside ZANU-PF. Number 1, isolate a potential threat politically. Number 2, ridicule them publicly. And number 3, force them to declare loyalty or make a mistake that justifies their removal. But despite all that, Chiwenga is not entirely done, even though he is down. Yes, he doesn't control the system, but he commands respect within parts of it, especially among certain wartime comrades and sections of the rank and file who view him as one of their own. He represents the memory of a military that once decided who rules Zimbabwe. And that symbolism alone is enough to make ED watch him closely. And furthermore, whether intentionally or unintentionally, Chiwenga has become the face and voice of everyone yearning for renewal in ZANU-PF. He represents those within the party who are tired of ED and angry with Zvigananda. And in particular, his anti-corruption rhetoric has earned him a degree of respect outside ZANU-PF. In the absence of a vibrant opposition, a sizable portion of desperate opposition supporters is actually rallying behind him. But let's be clear about one thing. Chiwenga is no different from any other ZANU-PF bigwig. He is no savior. Celebrating a takeover by Chiwenga from ED would be no different from what happened in 2017 when citizens celebrated ED's takeover under the impression that he would be different from Robert Mugabe. But perhaps that is the moral of the story. Maybe that is the actual lesson. That within ZANU-PF, power never dies. It only changes uniforms. Today's savior becomes tomorrow's suspect. and the ritual begins again. Not because they are different men, but simply because they are shaped by the same machine. But whatever happens, I'll be here to marinate you with all the details without fear or favor, because on this platform, we say it as it is. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy the content, please like and share.